So I'm obviously here to talk about cPanel WHM as well as other software and products that we produce. I'm going to talk about the product vision. It's going to include things that we've been working on this year, things you can expect in version 84, which should release in a few weeks, and things you can expect in upcoming versions. So as mentioned, my name is Ken, Vice President of Product Development. I've been with cPanel for, 13 years, 2006. I don't like date math, so 13, 14 years, something like that. I've worked in a lot of capacities at cPanel and product development, from QA all the way up to the role I have now. And I know I met and know a lot of you here, so glad to have you here with me for this presentation. At cPanel and product development, we've been focused on the fact that the market continues to change. It evolves. What we offered 20 years ago, 10 years ago, it's not the same or doesn't fit the same needs as now because the consumer has changed, the end user has changed. Our customers have changed. And because of that, we've been focused on making our products a better experience for this evolving landscape, this evolving market, and hence the statement control panel for the cloud. Cloud representing how that market has changed over the years. People's expectations when they're looking for solutions, when they're looking to get things done on the internet, has changed significantly. In talking to our partners, one area in particular that they focus on as needing this extra attention is our mail experience. Now, when it comes to the back end, things like Dovecot and XM, these perform really well. They interface nicely with your desktop mail clients. They tend to work flawlessly, and they're very reliable. However, it's the more visible portion of our email offering, things like, things like the webmail interface that don't perform as well. Thus, this year, one of our focuses has been on improving that webmail interface. Part of this will be focusing or standardizing on Roundcube 1.4. Now, Roundcube 1.4 has been in development for quite a while. It's a significant change from previous versions of this open source webmail application, one of which is how it looks. You're probably familiar with this. You can ignore all my cron emails in there. So it's pretty basic, kind of gets the job done. It's no frills. Roundcube 1.4 changes it. So it looks more modern. It's a better fit, looks more like it fits into applications you would find that the end user would look for nowadays. And it also performs well on mobile. Many of us, if we do use webmail, we probably do it on our laptops, on our desktops. But a lot of people, a lot of end users actually use webmail on their phones. The current offerings of Roundcube and Horde don't give you that great of experience with mobile. Roundcube 1.4 does. It scales very nicely no matter what resolution or device type that you're working with. And we've also, we've been working a little bit with the Roundcube team, giving them some feedback from a design aspect so that when this is ready to launch, it'll be a great experience for everyone. Along with making the webmail part of it look good, we know that is only one component of a great user experience when it comes to mail. Earlier this year, we introduced a Contacts and Calendar plugin. This is based upon an open source project that Apple developed. It was their calendar and contact server on OS X for quite a while. We've been using this internally at cPanel for our main calendaring solution for quite a while now. It's available as a plugin, runs on cPanel WHM. And one of the niches it fills is helping bring all your contacts together, helping make that autofill of email addresses possible, which, as we heard in another presentation, is something that causes or is a challenge for a number of our end users. They go into their webmail application and want to compose an email. When they type the person's name, nothing pops up. Having a synchronized contact system that can synchronize across all your devices, as well as eventually being able consume contacts from other services is an important step in solving that very tiny but important part of the user experience. This also means if you're familiar with our older implementation that relied upon SaberDav and Horde will go away and be completely replaced by this extension. And we'll be enhancing our email filtering by moving from the XM-based filtering language that we currently use over to MailSieve, which brings in a lot more capabilities. I know one personally I'm looking forward to is a filter where I can just mark a message as read. I get a lot of notifications, and they consume my time just so I can mark them as read. I'd like to have a filter that did that for me. When we look at our product offerings, we look at that changing market and what you, our customers, need, what your customers need. We often find those gaps, the solutions we're not currently providing. And we kind of have a basic choice when it comes to those gaps. We can either build something or we can partner with something or someone that has already provided this solution for us. We've done a lot more partnering over the last year or so to provide those solution gaps for you. And because of doing that, we've been focusing on speeding up our ability to add more of those integrations, both streamlining our processes internally with the product as well as our store. One upcoming one you can look forward to is the ability for people to do a one-click install and purchase of WHMCS. This will be available in the CP add-ons interface. Recently, within the last few weeks, we updated our Let's Encrypt plugin to support Acme Protocol version 2. A lot of people have been looking forward to this because it brings support for wildcard certificates. You can expect to see some more enhancements related to Acme version 2 in version 84 and 86 with how these certificates, those wildcard certificates are handled. And we extended our API token support from WHM to also cPanel and added the ability to auto-expire a token. So if you want a token to last for only, say, 6 months, that's how long it's good for. Some of the extensions that we have integrated with this year, Immunify 360, Lightspeed, and Jet Backup, I believe all of these groups are represented here at the conference and ready to answer your questions. And I think even yesterday they trained a lot of us. New experience. Let's focus a few minutes now on Easy Apache 4, what you can expect as far as changes to that part of our product offering. We're going to upgrade OpenSSL to version 1.1.1, which brings a lot of performance enhancements, as well as new signing algorithms, new hashing algorithms, but probably most importantly for most people is support for TLS version 1.3. So TLS 1.3 is something that's needed for, again, that ever-changing landscape of the internet, e-commerce, standards, and things like that. This will be available initially on the Apache side of things. The product at the moment still relies upon OpenSSL that's provided with the operating system. Whoops, sorry. Earlier this year, we added support for Node.js to Easy Apache. We are shipping Node 10. That's available, once you install it, it's available in Application Manager for end users to configure and deploy their Node.js applications. We also added Python support to Application Manager. So one thing I'll note here is we are relying upon the operating system version of Python, which means in some cases you may get Python 2, and in some you may get Python 3. These are both handled by Passenger as far as the integration with Apache goes. And then many of you likely saw that, I think is in the first quarter of this year, we introduced our initial support for a standalone Nginx experience focused on WordPress hosting. We have a presentation by that, we have a presentation about that given by the project lead for Easy Apache. Adam Ween will be presenting that topic tomorrow at 2 p.m. So he can go into far more detail about Nginx, where it currently is, the state of it currently is with the product, as well as how we're going to move it from now into production. And he'll also be happy to field all your questions related to Nginx. More on the technology changes front. In version 84, PowerDNS becomes our default name server. We're doing this because, as mentioned, the internet continues to evolve, new standards come out, and we need a name server that keeps up with that. So bind is still there and available for you if you need it. At some point, we could expect bind support to go away, but that's not in the near term at all. Right now, both are equally supported. Version 84 also comes with support for DNSSEC records in our DNS cluster. This relies upon your use of PowerDNS in our DNS cluster. And we'll continue to improve the DNSSEC support in version 86 with some performance enhancements for DNS clusters that are kind of at the large end of the scale, meaning they have tens or hundreds of thousands of zones in them. I'm going really fast. It's supposed to be like 35 minutes. I'm at the 12-minute mark. I'll try to slow down. So long-term support is something we introduced, I think, 2 years ago with version 62. There's a notable difference between our long-term support releases and, say, configuring a server for the stable tier. And that is once a new LTS version comes out, you have to log into that server and tell the server, hey, upgrade to the next LTS version. We're going to change that so that once the next LTS version is available, your system will upgrade to it. And we're getting rid of cPanel API version 1. It's been around for 20-some years. I think it's long overdue. And I do know our API versioning is kind of confusing. There's, 5 different APIs. There's also a WHM API version 1. That's not going away. Just the cPanel API 1, which is more of a templating language than it is an API. It was actually designed to output HTML instead of outputting data structures. So we expect API version 1 support, cPanel API version 1 support to go away with version 88. In roughly a year, CentOS 6 will reach end of life. So version 86 of cPanel WHM will be the last version to support CentOS 6. And there's a lot of systems out there that are using CentOS 6. Very popular distribution. I think one reason being it does not come with systemd. But, so CentOS 6 will reach end of life in a year. And for those who need more time, we've partnered with Cloud Linux to have additional 3 years of support on Cloud Linux 6, which means if you do need that additional time, it's an opportunity to switch over to Cloud Linux 6 and buy yourself more time in your schedule. Supposedly CentOS 8 releases today. Is it already out? Are the ISOs unlocked? CentOS 8 is out. And we are already working on adding support for that to the product. Unfortunately, because it wasn't available, we can't have day 1 support for it. But we do expect to have support for CentOS 8 soon. I know there's a few technology changes that we have to adapt to. One of the tiniest ones is TCP wrappers is gone. So we'll have to make a few adjustments, not just with features like host access control, but other things that change in CentOS 8. A frequent experience for customers is moving accounts around from one server to another for a wide variety of reasons. It's a very popular thing done with our software, and we want to make some improvements to that. One of which is providing the capability to migrate accounts and their content from some of the solution providers like Squarespace into cPanel and WHM. We do have some in-house kind of alpha level tools that accomplish some of that right now. As we improve on those and make them ready for production, you can expect to see them show up in our product line. In version 82, I believe it was, we added the ability to stream MySQL data from one server to another, which means for the context of account transfer, there's no MySQL dump involved. It just goes immediately over the wire to the other server. So not only will that save a step on the back end of the transfer, it also makes it a lot faster because it's not writing to disk multiple times. When you're transferring an account that is very popular, files tend to change in the middle of the transfer, which means the transfer tool tells you it's done, but it's not really done, because you have to go back and find those files and sync them manually. We're going to add an additional inspection of the source server to find those files and rsync them over for you as part of the transfer experience. As the market has changed and end users and other users have changed, we've seen more and more people use our product on places that are called VPS providers or cloud providers or now hyperscalers. They like to change their names. And so we've done some work to make our product available on these different platforms for single-click installations, which just simplifies getting the people that focus on these platforms, simplifies their getting up and running with our software. We're also evaluating other services that some of these provide, like Amazon tends to have like 700 different things you can do with their software. So we're evaluating some of those features as well. In version 82, we added support for Amazon RDS. This is available in the MySQL profile tool in WebPros Manager. So you can log into there, set up or configure it for Amazon RDS, and now that becomes available for your end users. About 5 or 6 years ago, we added support for one-to-one Nat licensing. As IPv4 addresses continue to deplete, we've seen more requests for one-to-many Nat licensing, and we now support that. If you want to take advantage of that functionality, please reach out to your account manager because it's still kind of in early adopter mode. So reach out to your account manager and we'll work with you on getting that set up. One caveat here, I'm not talking about Node.js. I'm talking about servers in a group. And again, the landscape has changed. One thing people commonly ask for is, I no longer want this all-in-one solution where I have mail and DNS and web and whatnot all in one server. For reasons, I need to split those out. I need to distribute that load. I need to improve performance, etc. Over the past couple of years, we've been making significant architectural changes to cPanel WHM to accomplish just that. Now, it's true we've had DNS only for about 10 years. DNS only exists primarily to configure a server in the DNS cluster and not much else. Recently, we announced the availability of DNS Node, which does that and far more, the ability to create and manage accounts on that server, the ability to link that server to your main server and have DNS records automatically be created over there. So you have your DNS hosted customers on the DNS node and your kind of full stack customers on your main node. Soon we'll also add support for mail node, followed by web node and database node. Again, not only does this give you the ability to split those services out across multiple servers, which is kind of that initial implementation of one-to-one linking, but eventually the ability to have groups of them and to just really scale as the web continues to change and people's needs continue to change. So if you have eventually when you have all these set up and you have the main server where you create the account, there's nothing additional you have to do because mail functionality will be created over here on the mail node, DNS on the DNS node, so on and so forth. And everything will be transparent, or transparent is the wrong word, invisible to the end user. They won't know. They don't need to know there's multiple servers involved because everything just works for them. So I kind of went through that really quick, but you got any questions for me? Sir in the back.
Screen scraping into straight HTML, or are we going to have some sort of that functionality? I'm asking.
So the question was, with the example of migrating an account and their data from Squarespace to the cPanel WHM server, what are we going to do about the web builder? Was that a fair summary?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. One, in general, we know we need some sort of web builder, and we are currently researching that. Second, in the case of this tool, right now what that tool does is it pulls them into a setup of WordPress and WooCommerce. You're welcome. And I don't know if he's in the audience, but if you want more information about that, you can talk to Chip Ware. He's our product owner that's been doing the research on that. Yes, sir.
Just with regards to converting to Power DNS, which is great. I'm a big fan of Power DNS. Are you going to be providing some tools to help convert from bind into Power DNS?
So I don't have to rephrase because you had a microphone. Short answer is yes. Right now, the way we configure Power DNS is it uses the same zone files that bind does. Eventually, we want to add support for MySQL for the back end, and at that point, yes, we'll need to do some migration. Right now, our configuration is zone data gets stored in the zone file, and DNSSEC data gets stored in an SQLite file. So having like a MySQL back end, we can put everything in one.
Thank you. Yeah, I was kind of assuming MySQL backend. I was not thinking about the zone file.
Yeah. You're welcome. I saw a hand over here.
I just kind of follow up on his question. So basically what you're saying with Power DNS is that when this happens, that at some point in time, the zone files themselves actually go away and we're just left with the database in that structure?
Yes. I don't know when that will happen, though. That's why my hesitation. So eventually, if you will, to simplify everything we do, if we only supported one name server, that'd make things a whole lot easier for us and probably easier for you. Kind of a problem we have right now is the zone files are the single source of truth on the cPanel server for all that zone information, and we need to solve that as well. But yes, kind of cleaning up the disk and simplifying that experience is something we will do.
Anyone else have a question? He's the guy. If you have any lingering question in your brain, now is your chance.
With the split web, DNS, and email, how did the new pricing structure affect that if you've got different pieces, especially one client split across all it?
Good question. I don't have, so the one thing I can answer for you right now is DNS Node is a flat license. I want to say $35, but don't quote me on that because relying on memory. But if you ask your account manager, they should, 30? Okay, I just asked my account manager and she said 30. See, that's why sometimes relying on memory isn't the greatest. All right, so $30 for the DNS node flat fee. As for the other nodes, they're not available yet, and the pricing part of that is still in research.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Because we have a half an hour.
Yeah, I spoke really fast, apparently. Or we could all just sit back and do our email, right?
Is that it?
So you said you're coming out with a database node.
Yes.
Is there an ETA on when that might come out?
Late 2020. So the question was, I mentioned a database node in the future, and what is the ETA on that? And my response is, at the earliest, late 2020. We don't have an ETA on it at the moment. The order, though, would be mail, which likely will be early 2020, followed by web, followed by DB or database. Did you have something to add to that, Dustin?
I was going to say, there is a server profile roadmap that's available online that we are constantly updating as that changes.
So Dustin pointed out, if you look in our documentation, there's a server profile roadmap. And just a little bit of info on that. If you log into WHM since version, let's say since version 78, there's a new entry in there called server profile, and you can see all these types in there. Most of them right now are marked experimental. In version 84, DNS node is no longer experimental. So you could play with some of these right now. If you do so, please do it on a clean system. So you can, if you go to our documentation, we have a server profile roadmap, which gives more information, and we do keep it up to date as things are discovered, decided, and implemented.
Anyone else have a question? Because with the remaining time, I understand that Ken is going to do a melody set of Lady Gaga hits.
Who's Lady Gaga?
I don't know. I got nothing. Any other questions today? Oh, over here. You?
Ken, you mentioned cPanel API 1 being deprecated and removed in, I think,
88.
What is the schedule for the WHM API deprecated, the one that is deprecated?
Good question. So the question was, when will WHM API version 0, because we like our numbering schemes to be consistent, when is WHM API 0, version 0 going to be deprecated and or removed? We don't have a timeline on that right now. I believe its removal will be a lot simpler than cPanel API 1 because I don't like this version numbering. WHM API version 1 already implements all the API calls of WHM API version 0. And it gets confusing. And cPanel API version 2 and cPanel UAPI did not include all the API calls of cPanel API version 1. And if you can keep all that straight, I'd like to talk with you later. What we really need, of course, is one API for the whole product, right? Easier to document, our doc manager just told me. If you want additional information about what we're doing in the realm of our API family, you can track down TJ Dinkless. He's our product owner in charge of making our product a better experience for integrators and developers, and his team has been the one that's been doing all the conversions, and we'll eventually get to delete that code that everyone loves. Right, TJ? So he's in the back there. And I think you have a presentation also about the hook system, among others.
In what room are you in at 3:15? They're here? Awesome.
Cool.
And, oh, you. Go ahead.
So you mentioned about the price, or somebody mentioned, price changes.
Mm-hmm.
So how's that gonna, as somebody who purchases the software, I'm buying cPanel, WHM software as a whole right now.
Okay.
Well, and so I get the mail, I get, everything as a full package. Well, if I want to say buy the mail node as well,
Mhm.
now I need to purchase the mail node and the main node, or the main software, or how's that going to split between all of them now?
That's part of the research that we're researching. That's a great question. So his question is, sorry, I forgot to repeat it. His question is, with these different node products like Mailnode, if I buy a standard license right now, do I need to buy a Mailnode license? What's the pricing look like there? How does this going to work? This is one of the reasons we haven't launched Email Node yet, is because we're still researching the licensing and billing part of it. It's a great question. Anyone else? I got CP cache, or sorry, WebPros cache. See, Todd and Nick aren't in here, right? Oh, wait.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. Appreciate that very much, everyone. Thank you.
Cool.